Thank you for being here for this exchange around this wonderful panel that will talk about the DDoS attacks and the associated protections in order to protect our services faced with multiple attacks that they undergo. So what are DDoS attacks? They have existed for many years, and they evolved technologically, particularly with AI, which is very much used by our dangerous hackers, and we realize that there are DDoS attacks which are increasingly sophisticated. ANSI provides us with the following figure. From 23 to 24, the number of DDoS attacks have doubled, and it will be 3 times more important during this year. This panel is really meaningful so that we can exchange on the different solutions that exist, particularly when we know that IT for Business survey explains that 1 minute of unavailable service costs $6 billion.
Donc on va rentrer directement dans le vif du sujet avec nos fabuleux panélistes que je vais présenter.
I will now introduce you to our panelists.
On a ici sur votre droite
On your right, Yann Crumérol, who is lead cybersecurity with RATP, the Transportation Service of Paris. Beside him, Jean-Félix Chevassu, who is product manager with Adista. We also have a warm and unique woman on the panel, Octavia de Weert.
Je l'ai bien dit?
It's okay? Is the pronunciation correct?
It's good? Okay. Je n'ai pas froissé de nom. Donc, elle est directrice générale.
She's general director of a company in the Netherlands that provides security solutions for internet providers, particularly DDoS attacks. Now we have Robert, I don't know your surname, who works for civil aviation with his colleague, David Le Goff, who works for the civil aviation, and Patrick Haus, who's a regional director with CSC Global.
Donc, pour débuter, on va commencer.
To start with, we are going to begin with you, Octavia.
The only lady on this panel. So, my first question for you is: the DDoS attack have significantly evolved over the past years. So, how do you perceive this evolution in your respective field? And are there significant differences between attacks targeting a larger company or SMEs?
Yes, I think. Thank you for the introduction. I'll just add a little bit more that we are a very peculiar company because we're actually a not-for-profit foundation. We are paid for our services by all the providers we service, but our main goal is to reinvest everything we earn into the services provided. And we're unique in this matter because we came to exist because this problem of DDoS attacks was very big in the Netherlands, and I think it's never stopped to be that way. So the providers unified themselves and thought, well, maybe this is too big of a problem to solve just by one provider by itself. What if we unite ourselves, organize ourselves, and solve this together? Concerning the DDoS attacks, we exist as a foundation for 20 years now. We've been active in this field for more than 10 years on DDoS attacks. And I think it's an evolution on several parts. First, concerning where do these attacks come from, you know, actually the source of the attacks. I think that moved a lot, especially I can aim what you said, confirm the huge amount of attacks that's been going on. I remember 10 years ago, there is a lot of attacks coming from what we were called like script kiddies, you know, like students or bored young people who tried to bring something down just for the sake of, or just like joyous activists trying to prove that they did so, they can bring a network down. That has moved totally from our perspective into what we these days unfortunately have to call cyber warfare, because DDoS is a specific weapon to be used for bringing anything down and disrupt services. So that's a huge evolution there, even if it's for the worst. Another evolution which we see is specific, because that it goes together concerning whether are big or smaller companies targeted. I think there is no difference there. Unfortunately, again, because when I remember 10 years ago, you know, we used to talk to small providers and they would say, well, I'm not important enough, you know, I will never be a target. We actually proved by reports which we did that everybody is a target in any other way, mainly because of the huge development of the internet and of use of shared services on the internet level. So that means that everybody either is a target or it's collateral damage in a bigger attack. And another change is, of course, the technicality of attacks, which moved a lot from brute force, you know, like you have to use a lot of capacity to be able to use launch an attack, into also using small attacks, which can be very disruptive on an application level. So you don't need a lot of resources to be able to launch that attack, because resources are also for hackers are expensive, so they need to make their own business case. And also, but on the other hand, capacity it's available. Maybe we'll talk later about IoT devices and the huge internet, a huge network which is all the time on and it's all the time around us.
Thank you, Octavia. So now we will switch in French for mes autres panélistes.
I will ask you the same question now. The question will be, DDoS attacks have evolved over the last years. How do you perceive this evolution in your respective sectors, knowing that, according to the last elements Ancy mentioned, we observe a strong evolution in DDoS attacks, particularly in electoral period? Do you observe with your customers an increase in attacks or more targeted attacks? Who wants to begin? I can take that question. With Adista, we are service managers. We offer connectivity, network, infrastructure services. We are host information systems for our customers. We also have collaboration and communication services, which are massively in clouds as a service. So DDoS attacks, we see them, and we can be targets. We are also operators who are visible for the hackers, from hostile states too. DDoS attacks are different from other attacks. because they are made by geopolitical activists. In France, for instance, in 2024, we had legislative elections. We had the Olympic Games. Just before that, we had premises with the Rugby World Cup. And these international events covered by the press, expected by the general public, targeted France, actually. And attackers look for, they want to be known. It's a business for them. It's a trend we have observed. Activists need to have their business, to make their business alive. The more they make a noise, the more they are visible. And volumetric DDoS attacks have increased in number because technique is now at industrial level. In the past, they were isolated, they were very quickly spotted, and hacking industry has industrialized with as-a-service tools, and anyone in their garage can buy a DDoS campaign for a specific target. Can be their former employer, can be an NGO that wants to attack a big multinational that hasn't the same values as they have. Well, this trend of as-a-service DDoS attacks, well, before they were more geopolitical towards states, and we witnessed attacks that progressively targeted companies and SMEs. SMEs which are not prepared for such attacks because they are very peculiar, and we'll mention this later, and the protection solutions for such attacks are not localized in the company most of the time. As transit operators, it's our responsibility to manage the protection of our customers. Thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to add something. Yes, I was presented. I served Aviation France, as many other airport or aviation companies. What was said is totally true. Very often these attacks come from abroad. We know where it comes from most of the time. These attacks can be avoided if you're well equipped. It can be avoided. So we have in the room the guy who took care of our DDoS security. So we see an increasing number of attacks against companies who do not have the capacity to protect themselves. In French aviation, there are big airline companies, there are bookings, medium-sized airports, small-sized airports. They are the victim, most of the time, the victims of these attacks because they don't know how to protect themselves. So attackers are very opportunistic because they target smaller companies. Bigger companies have bigger cyber defense systems. It's stupid for them to attack the latter because it will be an event, we will see it coming, we will block it. We have very skilled teams to do so. So I'd say that we see them change their focus. It has been said during this forum, we have to focus on helping the smaller companies. We need to collaborate, speak with the weaker ones. It's not a bad vision. When you have an airport with 100 employees, you cannot have 300 people dealing with cybersecurity. It's just impossible. I'm a big fan of CERT Aviation France, and David is part of it. He will continue. Thank you so much. You help us a lot on this professionalization of our tools. CERT Aviation, we are not experts of solution tools, but we help our members who do not have solutions, and we monitor their assets, and we set up tools that help them prevent DDoS attacks. We set that up for the Olympic Games because we realized there were many attacks before the Olympic Games. There are many agreements that were signed on these types of attacks. So we are here and we try and detect targets. We try and anticipate the threat, and we try and monitor from our vision of CERT Aviation. We do not have a complete vision, but we monitor 50 airports, besides founding members who have a real technical solutions. We had 30 important events during the Olympic Games, and what we see is that there are many activists who make a noise, and when they have their check host saying, okay, the airport of Montpellier is down, they stop. Well, all the security teams have to deal with it, and it's sometimes it's a way to make a bigger attack. So we monitor, but I do not have a vision of bigger airports such as ADP. But we see that we are targeted by activists who want to make a noise. What I witnessed is we set up a tool that goes through the DNS of our members. It lasts for 3 to 4 minutes, and then they go to another airport. Yes, I would like to give you some feedback of what we observe on domain name, DNS public. On these topics, we try and teach, because you have the idea that DNS hosting works perfectly, is free, but the reality is that we increasingly hear that DNS hosting can be a missing link in the security chain of the organizations. So we try and do that work to educate organizations with which we work on the need to reinforce their security. I think particularly about an attack that took place some time ago that aimed a DNS host called Dynect. They had undergone an attack. It was the Mirai virus that affected Mirai cameras, aiming the web or DNSs are part of the possible options for attackers. Recently, we witnessed quite important attacks. We still see some of them. DNS is a privileged target, and we have to be equipped for all this. I totally agree with what you just said. I often saw websites with multiple protections to protect data centers. And attackers targeted the DNS or domain host to destabilize data centers. And once again have to put down the public DNS of a big company. Nothing works then, because everything which is related to it does not work anymore. Or other question now? Maybe we will talk about the most critical impacts on the DDoS attacks, but I know that some sectors are not the target, but there are activists. Could you tell the speaker to keep his mic close to his mouth, because we don't hear him well? DDoS as a service that costs a lot of money on the dark net. Ransomware as a service is used for less than $50. It's how can I damage a structure or a domain name on multi-layer strategies. And in face of the evolution of these threats, what strategy or DDoS protection seem the most efficient? Do traditional solutions such as firewalls, IDS, IPS, etc., are they enough today? As an introduction, I said that denial of service attacks have existed since the beginning of the internet. Who wants to answer? Yes, I would like to answer. Indeed, the difficulty with DDoS attacks is that traffic resembles legitimate traffic. It's TCP, PACS, HTTPS requests. So the filter, the firewall, the sensor will not detect it as attacking traffic. So this perimeter protection is not enough. You have to add protection to the different types of DDoS attacks. There are three types of them. So volumetric attacks, network type of them. Then we have mechanisms to protect that. It's an equipment, and I think, Octavia, you will be able to talk about it. An equipment to detect a lot of traffic, which is legitimate, but does not resemble human behavior of a surfer or an app that makes a request to an API server. So you can clean the traffic and suppress the traffic that is abnormally elevated. Then there are application attacks, app attacks. So a number of requests in the OZ layer, and there you will bring a third layer after firewall and the protection, and then a WAF. It's also a behavioral analysis through machine learning to detect that the requests that come are not human, but aim at attacking. And then you have a protocol attacks where they look for a network vulnerability. It's much more complex there because you have to support your clients in looking for vulnerabilities, absence of patching, for instance, in their front end, their website with bad libraries or vulnerabilities that would help an attacker enter the system. This multi-layer approach, particularly in the heart of the network before delivering the traffic to the final client, because when the traffic goes to the final customer, it's too late. So we have this responsibility as an operator who see the whole traffic coming from the internet or from other clients of our network to clean the traffic on a permanent basis and alert the client on what we have detected in their web app. Indeed, there is a perimetric protection that helps avoiding overcharging the firewalls, but also on the apps, adding in more intelligent functionalities, or more efficient ones. Sometimes it's the application that is vulnerable. A classical example is a request that lasts for 30 seconds. You maintain it for 30 seconds. It's an app vulnerability that has to be processed. A good management of the cache. If we manage correctly the cache for 5 or 10 seconds, you put it in on equipment that are designed for that, to have many requests and transmitted in exit. It relieves the servers to avoid their overburden. They are overburdened when you're not able to detect that they are malevolent.
Oui, juste un petit complément.
Just a few words in addition.
La dernière protection, c'est la protection humaine, c'est-à-dire
the last resort is human beings, of course, the people who are programming services online.
Il est important de
so it is very important
dans les équipes de
to
développement
integrate in your design teams the persons in charge of administrating the services, because this is important to prevent also the OS attacks, codes injections, for example, which could collapse your app system. So human protection is also very important. You have to make sure as a app designer to think about all the attack path, and they're very well known, of course, and then you could also see what someone ill-intended could use as a route for attack. So maybe we could have systems for the human part of it, but what I was telling you is that now we have a traffic that looks very much legal, legitimate, with a small file that is a few MOs, and once it's downloaded, you have millions of connections.
Octavia, about it. So, for you and with your company, what are the most effective DDoS mitigation strategy today?
Well,
yeah.
There isn't only not one answer to that, because as we just talked about, I was just thinking to enforce what you were just saying, that let's say this DNS attacks, which was an example of the latest which we've seen, which is called carpet bombing on a DNS infrastructure. It's actually a very legitimate request. Only what is happening is just asking requests of millions and millions of subdomains at the same time. So one of the things, which I agree, I'm glad that you said that, is to enforce the DNS infrastructure, so everything which is around it. So perimeter security, it's also about enforcing the infrastructures around it, not only the one you think you're being aimed at. And the other thing is also still even though we think they are like brute force and they are behind us, there is still a lot of volumetric attacks. The last year, 80%, more than 90% of the attacks we mitigated were volumetric, like big attacks, and you need a lot of capacity for that. Hence, what we're saying, you can't use that by yourself as a small provider, so you have to have something else in place. And actually, from our perspective, it's everything at the same time. We do all of those mitigations at the same time. Yeah, we do geo-blocking when needed, and then it's from big to small. Actually, a funny thing is just to talk a little bit more lightly this afternoon on this matter. Our mitigation is called like, like car washing. It's NAVAS, which is like national car washing for DDoS attacks, because that's the way we work. If we need to geo-block on, if we see that it's a big, massive attack coming from a certain part of the world, and then we ingest that traffic, and we're actually by using patterns within our systems, we recognize, we do a lot of research on that, in which we try to recognize what type of attack it is very early before we ingest everything. So there is another big chunk which we don't deliver through. And then we do actually packet inspection on every package we see coming. So it's from big to small. Our approach is from big to small, and actually everything at the same time, because you need that to get to that point of, and that's real time, and in the meanwhile, we keep the customer alive. So that's a big deal.
Thank you very much.
Si je peux réagir sur
I may react to this on the geo-blocking strategy.
C'est une technique qui est efficace.
This is an effective system, but the issue is that you might block legitimate traffic. This is something that we wanted to do for the Olympic Games. At some point we thought, yeah, well, we will only accept traffic from France. But we analyzed the legitimate origins of our traffic, and we realized that we had a third of our traffic coming from foreign countries all over the world, which were, for example, regions that were also countries of origins for DDoS attacks. So it was impossible to us to block all these countries. So we had to make sure not to geo-block legitimate traffic.
What I meant is you can't rely only on one measure. You have to be able to compound everything out of those. The last time we never do blocking as usually, but we go as far as trying to attribute, which attribution is the hardest part of DDoS mitigation. But because we do a lot of research, at one point we said, well, we know for sure that IP, even if it's spoofed and it seems legitimate, it's wrong, so we can block. So it's a little bit of everything. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't rely only on one kind of mitigation.
Je pense effectivement la précision et l'expertise dans les configurations, comme tu disais.
Yes, indeed. Being accurate and precise in the work you do is crucial. And then you need the capacities to be able to absorb a high volume of traffic in one instant. And then thirdly, I would say that you need to be able, when there is a real issue happening, to move to another configuration. That's possible through DNS. You can have contingency configurations that you could switch to. So I think there are several options available. I wanted to add something. It is all about anticipating the issue. We are not experts. We do not provide solutions. So this is very important. Let the experts work. That's what I think. But what we do in terms of protection is to anticipate the risk. So we try to do intelligence on the groups, the targets, the cyber attackers, and we can tell someone, for example, there will be an attack, just close your website. This is the kind of protection we provide, which is, of course, not 100% effective, but this is our small building block that we add to the line of defense. We can tell you, well, there will be an attack. They might come through that port, so do something. Block your website or put it in maintenance. That's all we can do, of course.
Juste un complément. Effectivement, une des caractéristiques des
just, if you would, DDoS attacks are very punctual. They happen very quickly, and so you have to be quick. You need to be quick and react very quickly. An attack is not expensive, but once an attacker is detected, identified, they choose another target right away. So we need solutions that do not impact the real legitimate traffic. Of course, we can use a black wall, we can use legitimate traffic. This helps avoiding the collapse of an infrastructure, if you can patch your system and so on. But these are mitigation actions that have to be very quick to protect the infrastructures, but at the same time to deter the attackers and hope the attacker will switch to another target, and if possible in another country. I might reiterate, firewalls won't help. You need WAF solutions. That's what we are doing. I do not agree with the fact that we block IPs if you do not know who they are. This could lead to real traffic, legitimate traffic being blocked. So what we are doing is to try and have a more refined analysis and research to really have an accurate approach. And I'm not sure that our filters do block legitimate traffic. That's the point. We're trying really to differentiate between legitimate traffic and ill-intended traffic. That's our objective. We want to protect businesses. We do not want to stop the activities of businesses. Otherwise, there's no point in having WAF approach. We just close the website, which sadly, and I'm not criticizing what you've just said, put your website in maintenance. It might be the solution when you do not have enough capacities to absorb volume. It might be the only solution, but this is what we are trying to avoid on our site. We are really trying to segregate traffic. Indeed, if you have crucial, vital services, this is not a good solution. But on our side, that's the only solution we can provide. We can tell our people, okay, this will be an attack, this will last for 3 to 4 minutes, just find a solution and avoid traffic during 4 minutes. That's it. For example, during the Olympic Games, we've seen many small cyber attacks that we did not even take into account because they were too small. For example, a parking system that does not work for like 2 minutes is not much of an issue. So we decided to segregate the issues. And then there's another story that I would like to tell you about. One of our members has an old domain name that he's no longer using, but this name is very close to his real name. And so the attackers think it is the real website. It is not the real website. And so cyber attackers are on Telegram saying, we've attacked this massive website, we're so good, we're so strong. And the thing is, it's just an open door and a website that is no longer used. And something else that is important to mention, you have to check the surface area of your vulnerabilities. Think as if you were a cyber attacker. Try to make your attacks real, and then Think about how you could mitigate these attacks. I know this is not the perfect approach, but when I say just close the doors for a while, this is the only solution sometimes. Yes, indeed, I want to react to that. Sometimes the only solution to protect from an attack is to close a website. Sometimes you have websites, pages that are online and are no longer in use or are not much used at least, and just close these websites. It is a sensitive topic. We deal with 3 million domain names for our clients, and big organizations do not do any cyber hygiene, cyber protection, so they do not close domain names. It is a very sensitive topic, honestly. We've been working in the field for a long time. We know what's happening, but sometimes you have people that inherit such responsibilities and they do not really understand what's happening, and it is a major issue. I'm not talking about subdomain hijacking or domain name squatting, but this is a real issue, really. Indeed, it is a recurring issue in cybersecurity. We should at least know what exists. We need a benchmark. This is shadow IT. This is legacy IT. This, of course, creates vulnerabilities that are not protected. This is an exposure because this is not up to date. And this has a rebound effect. We're not talking about DDoS attacks, but you could communicate on the fact that you've attacked a website of a big company. For example, a former RATP website hasn't been closed, and you use it, you attack this website, and yes, you get visibility out of it. This is how it works. That's how hacking works. They want trophies for their wins. There's no real money to be making out of it, so they just want the visibility of having attacked a website. There's a lot about egos in hacking, and that's understandable. I see hackers as geniuses. Okay, they're on the wrong side, but there's a lot to learn from these people. Because if you understand the way they think, you become a better defender. I totally agree with you. And indeed,
pour poursuivre nos échanges,
to move on, we know that there's no silver bullet. So we have several layers of measures. That's what Octavia told us. So sometimes you can have a web application firewall, others are using company services or just asking services from their web hosts. But the human factor cannot be forgotten. In the short term, with technology development, things that we observe on a day-to-day basis, such as the development of AI, do you think that tools will appear that will allow to offer defensive solutions even if attackers are already using these new technologies? Is there a way for us to use these new attacks to defend? I think that this is already what we were discussing earlier. Yes, indeed, the answer is yes, but Frédéric, maybe you started the conversation, I think. Yes, indeed. Indeed, there are use cases for AI in defense. Of course, they use AI to attack us, but luckily, many solution providers, as of today, use AI in their solutions. For example, we use protection solutions from another creator. We are not solution creators. We are rather solutions integrators. Well, you can say AI is everywhere. Last year, there was not that much AI at the forum. This year, it's all about AI. And so our detection engines, the models, the CERT teams all use AI to speed up the processes because it's all about time. We're always trying to catch up and make up for lost time. AI is vastly faster than human beings. For example, SOCs in the past, analysts with the different CERTs, different associations, would share information. It would take time, of course, to share information and learn. Thanks to AI now, the knowledge is accessible immediately. You can recognize signatures, weak signals on a cyber attack, and provide a solution quickly. So we can have a solution that is a combination of humans and AI. AI will do 80% of the detection work, mitigation work, and propose answers, solutions, because AI can use the entire international knowledge base, the entire communication between experts, and then the 25% remaining are done by humans. The human beings are doing the interaction, are choosing the best option, deciding whether to close the website or not, block the traffic or not, redirect or not, use CDNs, and so on. So yes, indeed, luckily, AI will be a factor that will help us a lot, because attacks are evolving, changing every day, and Octavia will confirm that. Every day there's new attacks. We have new types of attacks. Even DDoS attacks are evolving, and we have to adapt. And that's where AI can help us out, because AI can know if something looks like an attack, a cyber attack. A human being would not see that early in the process.
Well, I totally agree, actually, with that, about that patterns recognition, and we actually already use that in our detection services, because as we saw, the first challenge is to detect, because any given traffic, it could be legitimate. It looks like legitimate traffic. We've seen that as an example in providers who use voice over IP services over the internet, which is a whole new group which needs protection, because you can't even afford a 1 millisecond of downtime there. One website who just looks a little bit slower, it's different than a conversation on the internet. So voice providers, which generally, for example, in the Netherlands are SMEs, are small companies, have a very high need of high availability, which they can never approach by themselves. So we use specifically pattern recognition on this kind of traffic to be very early in detection. So that's our first steps toward pattern recognition systems and machine learning. And the second is we use that because we just simply cannot process these amounts of data which is being thrown to us, because we're mitigating hundreds of attacks at any given time, so you cannot look at that traffic anymore only with human eyes.
Moi, je voudrais revenir sur quelque chose qui a été dit, les honeypots. J'aime assez bien l'idée de cette solution parce que
quite like the ideas that have been mentioned.
Ça nous permettrait effectivement de bloquer.
Such solutions could help block traffic. If you have an e-pod, you know that there's no legitimate traffic. So the idea is to combine all the solutions, I think, have different layers. I really think that's the best option. Of course, it's expensive, you need resources, but the ideal solution is a combination of all the solutions. Indeed, and what's interesting, what you've just said,
superposition de plusieurs couches de sécurité.
Is that we need several layers of security. That's the only way to protect yourself from DDoS attacks. However, if you look at small companies or local authorities, and I'm not mentioning here the big budgets, local authorities. Most of the local authorities do not have the means to implement the ideal DDoS protections. They are not a priority to them. They use firewalls, for example. They use tools with different add-ons with sensors and so on, but I've never seen a good use of firewalls in this public service. Well, come to us. I'm pretty sure that some good examples do exist out there, but I'm thinking about the small companies. Of course, they do not have the budgets to protect themselves. There's a lack of awareness, first and foremost. And to go beyond that, a mayor from a city told me this: if we're under DDoS attack, well, that's the operator, the internet provider responsibility, not mine. So awareness raising will be very important. Who is in charge of what? Who is to be held to account? Do you go to the internet provider, the security provider, or the government? Is it the government maybe that has to protect the public service? I don't know. How do we share the burden and how do we bear the responsibility together?
Oh, I know that answer.
You can start.
I thought you never asked, but that is really true. Firstly, I really think it's the responsibility of the service providers nowadays, because we all want to deliver security by design, which has to be in all the layers of infrastructure. And that's how we came to exist. The service providers in the Netherlands thought, you know, my clients are asking for something. These are small businesses which can never afford anything we can offer. What if we do this together? So our model is, as a service, we exist, we sit there and are available, and the small providers pay us a smaller amount. The big providers pay a bigger amount according to the growth of their network. And we are, as a service use, so it's a small providers is under attack, reroutes their traffic through our services, and the traffic is being cleaned. So I'm a big pioneer of working together on this item, because we are coming to an era in which I think security challenges are more than one single party can provide to one single customer. So we need to be, now going back into what you said, attackers, sometimes I think attackers work better together than we do at the good side of the security, you know? So we should be able to step out and say, well, what if we do this together? What if we work together in solving this problem? So I'm preaching for myself to the choir, but I'm a believer of working together to enable smaller companies to deliver security by design services to them. So at the back of these networks, we once actually did a benchmark, because we'd never know which is at the backside of the services. We deliver our services to service providers, and we have 200 plus service providers in the Netherlands and Europe who are using our services. And we once did a benchmark, and there are like millions of websites behind that. We never know who they are, but they are protected just by using these providers who are using our services. So that's the big effect of enabling service providers to deliver security by design into their services.
Thank you.
Oui, je suis assez d'accord. Effectivement, c'est notre responsabilité.
I totally agree. This is part of our responsibility as operators, as service providers. We have to protect our clients. But once again, we need a multifaceted approach. European Union, for example, is now well aware of the threat.
La directive NIS 2.
And there's this new directive, NIS 2. You have to secure your supply chain. So as a service provider, we are member of the supply chain. we're at the heart, at the core of our clients' IT systems. And these clients are not aware of the danger. So, of course, yes, our service offers security by design. All our internet access services include DDoS protection, but it has a limit. Of course, there's a threshold. We do not offer WAF. We do not offer very low levels of protections, but we still protect the infrastructure, our clients, with a first filtering, screening. So yes, there's this directive, the service providers, but at the same time, clients, they also need to assess the intensity of their risk. Is it a crucial activity, a vital activity? Is this an issue if they're under DDoS attack? For how long can they resist it? And if they need to be available all the time, they need to implement the budgets to offer additional solutions to those we offer ourselves. Yes, indeed, from the client side, what we've seen is that service providers in the past were not offering these services. It was an option. You had to pay for it. It was a premium for DDoS protection. While they were protecting their own infrastructure, so they were protecting their own infrastructure, but not the client's infrastructure. But I think this is changing now, thanks to the new European directive. There's nothing compulsory for the moment. I am not sure, at least. But clearly there are incentives around. And as clients, there are also incentives to choose service providers with good solutions. But it is difficult to test it. You will not attack a provider to test their systems, of course. But I think we're on the right path. In the past, we knew that service providers were only protecting their own infrastructure. And a year or two ago, they were telling us, well, there's a DDoS attack that's not much of an issue because we can support it, we can absorb it, but your apps won't work. For the clients, you have to go further. The lower level of the network will absorb the traffic, but the application level will collapse. So we need countermeasures that are specific and efficient. Yes, once again, this is the idea of filters. We have a big filter at our level trying to deal with terabytes of a second of traffic. This is the entire traffic we are collecting on our client side, so that we are trying to clean in a way, but of course we cannot go beyond that. There's a threshold from which we start offering optional solutions with finer filtering on specific ports, specific protocols, with app filtering, WAF. These are discretionary to the client. They can make the decision if they decide that their internet website is vital or not. If it's just an e-commerce site, it represents a lot of turnover, so impact is important, and they might decide to have other options. If a user cannot go to your website, they will just go to the competition. Now, if we're talking about institutional websites, it's not that serious. The turnover loss is not the same. You do not agree? Well, anyway, there's a granular approach. We can adapt, and when we offer solutions to SMEs, we cannot offer DDoS protection that is 4 times more expensive than what the competition offers. This is our business case. So our option will be more granular. You have options, you can have added protections, but we do provide the first filtering. I think it would be a crime to offer a service that is not protected in itself. We do web hosting, for example. So if we offer platform as a service, we do also implement EDR. This is not optional. It is included in the service. And so we are offering services, internet as a service, so we have a first level of protection.
Just to give you my point of view on the institutional aspect in public authorities, We have to guarantee a continuity in public services. So some public services are essential for which you cannot have any discontinuity, even if nobody's going to die. But let's take the example of last 2 or 3 hours because you will have the opportunity to, there is a limit to declare your revenues. It's very problematic. So some public services are essential, and for which even within public services, you have to act with a strategic vision, exactly as in a commercial company. No, I expressed myself wrongly. I meant essential services, of course, for a municipality, etc. The service to citizens, of course, should be protected, of course, so that it is available for the public. I'm not going to attack ANSSI, but all the municipalities are not protected as required, even if in a 5,000 inhabitant municipality. I will give you an example because I have witnessed it. If you grieve and you have to go to the municipality to get a decease certificate, and if the municipality cannot provide it to you, when your father died, for instance, well, it's a complex situation. I know this. I can tell you. NIS 2, well, it's my personal point of view, well, should be applicable to all the municipalities and all local authorities in France. NIS 3, maybe. I haven't heard you much. If you want to bring some precisions.
Quelques mots aussi de la part de l'aviation civile.
Civil aviation, maybe.
J'ai l'impression qu'on a tous été victimes d'une attaque.
We were all victims of DDoS attacks. Everyone is tired, but we're still up and running. We all agree on the fact that your responsibility in terms of service providers, well, they accept it. That's how they earn their living. But when you think about what is said about NIS 2, I wonder how the landscape of providers will evolve with NIS 2. And IS 2, the scope is wider with obligations that are stronger. And for the part that involves me, I have the impression that the landscape will transform medium term between providers that will set up investments and resources to have their tools and services evolve, and those who will see some bricks of their services be put aside. So I see there might be a shift on the market with the providers, and I'd like to see how it will evolve in the coming month. Everything has been said. In terms of responsibility, together we are stronger. That's my motto. Today we have an ecosystem where we are strong because of the interset. Multi-layer is also that. Is accepting that we are all responsible to find these people, and we have to work together.
on va parler de partage,
we are going to talk about risk sharing. In terms of responsibility, I think that when you offer a website to an administration, you should also offer protection. It should go hand in hand. I don't know if it should be an obligation, but you do not sell a car without an ABS system. There should be an obligation to protect what you provide. Many legislations in Europe involve the obligation of people to protect themselves. But the attacker is far away. Why shouldn't we force the providers to sell the protection or make a bundle with the protection? It means acting on the legislation. I would like to react. The attacker is not here. Well, sometimes it is. There's also an obligation of the government, responsibility of the government, which is to act on the source, particularly the hackers, to stop them, to arrest them, to dismantle hacker groups, potentially to warn us. Once you have IoT, try and detect the vulnerable one and make sure that they are patched with the operators, local authorities, etc. Protecting is one thing, but you also have to work upstream on the source of the attack. I would like to answer this. I do not agree to let the people, the attackers, work because they are out of our frontiers. No, that was not my idea.
Je parlais de l'origine, donc en général les.
I was talking about the origin. Well, the people who trigger it, it's difficult to extradite them. In the forum, we had discussions. Sometimes they get the wrong plane and they arrive in a place where they hadn't foreseen, so we should stop them. For some years, we have portraits of people, and sometimes a plane lands where it shouldn't, and you have the opportunity to stop the person. Here we are in a more diplomatic framework because within the European Union we have Europol or others that act, and there are agreements in Europe that help us act on the source of the attack. But you cannot do anything if the source is in countries that target us the most, where hacking is tolerated when it does not touch their own institutions. There are states where there is no legislation on IT. That's anarchy in some places. That's why protection, in my opinion, is the first wall to stop attackers. NIS2 helps us in that because it imposes to make a statement on these attacks and cyber attacks. For a long time, people did not declare it because they were ashamed. And the problem of such behavior is that attacker could attack the neighbor and the friend, and there was a spiraling effect. We increasingly raise the awareness of company managers, telling them that they have to lodge a complaint and to say when they have been attacked. Because this helps a lot to finally find the attackers and put them in jail.
Well, maybe I want to another thing which actually did another proposition. As always, even on a human basis, it's more layers of more things, you know, which we can do. In the Netherlands, there was big success, and there was the police going into the school and having awareness on the adolescents, you know, who were like the script kid is trying to do DDoS attacks just for fun. We still have those. We have some of our clients who are hosting schooling networking, and know they can put the clock on when the attacks will start because it's exam time or testing time, whatever. But this approach of the Dutch police in going to the classrooms, like in the Dutch in the police uniforms, and telling the kids, remember that if you do something like this, you're actually, you know, punishable by law. You will have like a law, something on your, you know, you will be fined, or not even so. It will take with you into the adulthood. So think of what you're doing now. That was a big success, actually, in awareness on that level, because there is a thin line within this community of young attackers who think something is for fun, and they are easily taken into something which is bad, you know? So I think even on the human level, it's more of a multiple approach of more measurements we can take.
We don't have this approach here in France. Maybe
actually, there are some initiatives. To do that. ANSSI has created a game, so they're coming into that. I think in the northern part of Europe they are more advanced, but it will come to the southern part for sure, and we are in the middle, so that's fine. but it will come. I'm pretty sure that I have heard during this forum other initiatives going towards college, lycée, and so on. So it's really good. It's coming. Enfin, ça arrive en France aussi. Il ne faut pas désespérer.
Je pense qu'il faut le faire.
Il faut être positif. On est en Europe et c'est pas mal. Pour l'instant, ça a l'air bien d'être en Europe.
C'est vrai que ça progresse, mais c'est vrai qu'aujourd'hui, nous, on a eu quand même des doctrines bisounours.
Today, doctrine was too kind, the offensive doctrine
On parlait de contre-attaque, finalement.
Was only counterattack, only in some sectors where you are authorized to counterattack. So if we show the attacker that we are going to increase the judicial power and our response, well, they might be less willing to attack. When you want to lodge a complaint for a cyber fact, well, it evolves. There are teams that are able to investigate. In France, it's quite complex. In other countries, we do not even talk about it, besides big networks that we still have. There's still a long way to go. In police stations, you have a lot of complaints that are not processed because they lack means. We have to reinvent the judicial capabilities. Maybe private companies should deal with that to help the police and the judicial system. I would like to add something. This morning I heard General Lussan said that they had a grid of cybersecurity people in charge. In Charente-Maritime, we had 2 of them. One retired and hasn't been replaced. So the poor guy, when he has to make an investigation, well, it's very complex, you know. So there is an effort to be made by the government to help these police people who are very lonely in that. And also an effort from the judicial side, because some courts do not understand why you lodge a complaint, because for days you haven't been able to develop. So there is now a cyber specialized court, but there is only one of them. So this has to be increased. That's another debate. We are far from DDoS.
Écoutez,
Okay.
on approche de la fin.
I think we are close to the end. We could talk for a long time about this topic.
L'heure tourne et il reste encore quelques minutes. Enfin, il reste encore 1 ou 2 minutes.
We only have 1 or 2 minutes.
Donner le mot de la fin.
I will
Je vais peut-être
give you
commencer
the
d'abord par
opportunity
Octavia.
to give the last
If you can
word.
give us one or an advice for organization or French administration, or I don't know, to strengthen their DDoS resilience, what would it be?
Well, I don't have to think twice about it. Really working together, enable companies to join forces and share as much knowledge as you can. I think threat intelligence knowledge sharing is our biggest risk at this moment, because it starts to be used as an earning method. You know, I have some knowledge, so I'll sell it to you instead of sharing. I think threat intelligence sharing knowledge enabled by the government is the biggest asset in any kind of resilience project we have. And work together within Europe and within the European projects to actually be able to develop that AI, that knowledge, that mitigation tools we are badly in need of, and build up skills. That would be my takeaway.
Thank you very much. Est-ce que l'un d'entre vous souhaiterait donner aussi son avis ou un conseil pour...
Does one of you want to provide a piece of advice?
Parce que justement,
I'm very well placed because I offer IT solutions.
le premier conseil que je
So
donne,
the first advice I would
tant
give
qu'offreur,
is, as a service
j'ai le devoir
provider,
de conseil,
I have a
forcément,
duty to provide advice,
c'est de ne pas se tromper de
but
solution.
I can't
Et donc,
provide the wrong
investir
solution. So
dans une
investing
solution sans
in
avoir
a
au
solution
préalable
without
analysé ses risques
analyzing the
et mis en
risk
face de chacun des risques
and putting in front of each
un
risk
budget,
a budget,
des moyens,
means.
c'est la première chose à faire pour pas se tromper.
Well, that's the
finalement,
first
et
thing, not
protéger
to
en
be wrong,
premier
and
ce qui est le plus important
protecting
pour
what is
l'entreprise.
most important for the
Ça peut
company.
être un système de
Can
contrôle
be
d'accès, ça
an
peut
access
être un
control
système de
system,
WAF, ça peut
can
être un
be
système
a WAF,
de protection de la messagerie,
a messaging protection,
savoir prioriser ces mesures de protection parce qu'on peut pas tout faire
prioritizing
d'un seul
the
coup.
protection, because you cannot do everything at
Et
once.
Moi, ce que je vois au quotidien,
What I see on a
surtout
daily basis,
chez les PME,
particularly
et
with
aussi les collectivités,
SMEs
les mairies,
and
etc., c'est qu'elles sont complètement
local
perdues.
authorities, is that
Il y a
they're
le business
lost.
qui arrive, donc la pression de devoir se protéger partout.
NIS2 is coming, so they have a pressure to protect
on peut pas tout faire
themselves,
d'un
and you
coup.
cannot
On a un
do
peu de
everything
temps,
on one go.
Mais il faut commencer par
But you have to
protéger
begin with
80%
protecting
des
80%
assets
of
de
the
l'entreprise.
assets of the
Et ce qui est
company,
différent pour chaque entreprise.
and
Donc,
it's different for each company.
faites-vous conseiller,
So
venez voir votre
be
prestataire
advised,
IT,
go and see
une
your
matrice
service
en
provider, make a
déploiement,
risk
finalement, de mesures
matrix, and deploy.
Ce qui a été dit, hein.
I will repeat what
Travailler
has been
ensemble,
said,
essayer
working
de protéger
together,
les
try and
faibles,
protect
c'est un peu
the
ce qu'on essaie de faire
weakest.
avec certains de nos enfants.
That's what
Je
we
pense que c'est
try
un bon
to
exemple.
do, and that's a good
Vraiment
example, I
une belle
think.
chose.
It's a beautiful thing to do.
Oui, peut-être garder
Maybe keeping the eyes and ears well open. You talked about the external attack surface. There are still many dead angles on these aspects, so not lose anything.
Faire comme les attaquants. Hein,
Do as attackers, unite and work together.
Côté RATP, en tant que client.
RATP.
Moi, ce que je vois surtout, c'est si ça peut être
What
fait,
I
enfin,
would
le côté
like
travailler ensemble,
is to, of
un peu
course,
incité
work
par
together,
par le réglementaire.
but
soit
regulation
plus
should
facile à faire
facilitate it for companies.
Bah, écoutez, je vous remercie en tout
Thank
cas
you so
pour
much
ce fabuleux panel.
for this wonderful panel.
Merci à vous.
Thank you very much.
Je vous souhaite une bonne fin de journée et puis un bon dernier jour
I wish you a very nice last day at the FIC.